Dinosaurs ruled this planet for over 165 million years, and the ones that survived the longest weren't always the biggest. They were the most ruthlessly efficient. Today, I'm breaking down the most dangerous dinosaurs that ever lived and exactly what made each one a nightmare. Starting with a predator that carried a hidden blade on each foot, Utahraptor. Forget everything Jurassic Park taught you about raptors. The movie version stands about 6 feet tall and hunts in clever little packs through kitchen doorways. Cute. The real version, Utahraptor, stretched 23 feet long and weighed 1,100 pounds. That's not a velociraptor with a growth spurt. That's a completely different class of predator, but here's the detail that makes this animal genuinely unsettling. Each foot carried a 9.4-inch curved sickle claw, and Utahraptor kept that claw raised off the ground while it ran, not to protect it, to keep the edge razor sharp like a switchblade folded shut, waiting for the exact moment it found soft tissue and it could close that distance fast. Biomechanical analysis puts Utahraptor at 34 miles per hour in short bursts, with a bite concentrated at roughly 1,000 pounds per square inch. This wasn't a bone crusher. This was a surgical striker built to open wounds with terrifying precision. Now here's where it gets interesting. Trackway patterns and bone accumulation sites suggest Utahraptor may have hunted in coordinated groups. Some paleontologists push back on this, arguing solitary predation was more likely and the jury is genuinely still out. But if the pack hunting evidence holds up, you're looking at multiple 1,100-pound predators running you down together, each one armed with a hidden blade. That's the thing about danger. It's not always about size, it's about efficiency. But if brute force aggression is more your speed, wait until you meet the Jurassic period's most relentless big game hunter, Allosaurus. Allosaurus gets overshadowed by Tyrannosaurus in every dinosaur conversation, and that's a mistake. Because while T-Rex was a bone-crushing brute, Allosaurus was something arguably more terrifying, a precision killer. At 28 to 32 feet long and weighing around 2.3 tons, it wasn't the biggest predator of the Jurassic. But here's the thing, it didn't need to be. Its teeth were serrated and curved, built specifically for slicing flesh rather than crushing bone. Its hunting strategy was closer to a modern lion than a crocodile. Bite, slash, pull back, and let the prey bleed out. Calculated. Patient, ruthless, but that's not even the most interesting part. Its tail made up roughly half its entire body length, acting as a counterweight during high-speed pursuit. This wasn't an animal that stumbled into kills, it chased them down with balance and control that later mega predators couldn't match. And we know all of this with unusual confidence because Allosaurus is one of the best documented predators in fossil history. Over 60 specimens recovered worldwide. But here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. 17 of those specimens show healed injuries, broken ribs, fractured skulls, damage consistent with violent encounters with prey or other predators. This animal got hit back constantly and it kept hunting anyway. Now, paleontologists have found T-bone fractures on sauropod skeletons, by animals 3 to 4 times the size of Allosaurus. That raises a question nobody has definitively answered. Were multiple Allosaurus individuals coordinating attacks on these giants, or are those wounds from fighting each other? Either answer makes this animal significantly more dangerous than its reputation suggests. Where Utahraptor was a sprinter built for ambush, Allosaurus was a pursuit predator, playing the long game. Two completely different threat profiles, both lethal. But if coordinated hunting sounds disturbing, wait until you meet a dinosaur that didn't just kill other species, it ate its own. Majungasaurus. Aha! At 18 feet long and roughly 1,000 pounds, Majungasaurus is the smallest predator on this list. It's also the only one confirmed to eat its own kind, and that's not a theory. That's not some paleontologist making a guess based on one weird bone. Nearly 1/3 of all examined Majungasaurus specimens have bite marks on them, and those bite marks match exactly one animal, other Majungasaurus. This thing was actively hunting, killing, and eating members of its own species on a regular basis. No other non-avian theropod has that distinction. Not even close. But here's the part that makes it even worse. For its size, Majungasaurus had the most devastating bite of any theropod ever documented. We're talking 4,400 pounds per square inch relative to body weight, the highest ratio on record. Pound for pound, this animal had a more dangerous jaw than anything else on this list, including the ones 3 times its size. Those jaws weren't designed to bite and release. They were designed to clamp down and never let go. And then there's the skull. So that thick bony crest sitting on top of its head wasn't decoration. Biomechanical analysis suggests it functioned as a battering ram during fights fights with other Majungasaurus. So picture this: a cannibal dinosaur with a bone-crushing bite and a built-in head-butting weapon picking fights with its own species on an island with limited resources. Why the cannibalism? Two leading theories. First, Cretaceous Madagascar was brutally resource scarce, forcing these animals to turn on each other out of desperation. Second, ritualized dominance combat during breeding seasons that escalated into something fatal and then something edible. Neither theory rules out plain opportunism as a third factor. It's a dead rival is still a free meal, but if a cannibal that eats its neighbors unsettles you, wait until you meet the one predator on this list that abandoned land altogether. Spinosaurus, 50 feet long, longer than a Tyrannosaurus, longer than a school bus. Spinosaurus is the largest predatory dinosaur ever documented, and it shouldn't make any sense to you, because it doesn't hunt the way an apex predator is supposed to hunt. Here's the thing, everything you assume about a giant carnivorous dinosaur falls apart with this one. Spinosaurus didn't chase down prey across open plains, it swam after them. The 2020 fossil revision confirmed what scattered evidence had been hinting at for years. This animal was semi-aquatic, possibly fully aquatic, propelling itself through ancient river systems with a paddle-shaped tail, unlike anything seen on any other large theropod. Its targets weren't herbivores, they were giant sawfish and massive crocodilians, creatures that would terrify most predators on their own. But here's where it gets genuinely strange. Those cone-shaped teeth weren't built to tear flesh apart. They were built to clamp down on something slippery and never let go. A fishing predator's death grip, not a butcher's blade. Its bite force exceeded 6,000 pounds per square inch, but that power served a completely different purpose than what you'd expect from a dinosaur this size. And then there's the sail. Neural spines reaching 5.6 feet tall running along its back, forming a structure that paleontologists still cannot agree on. Thermoregulation, sexual display, fat storage. All three theories remain on the table with zero consensus. But here's the part that matters most. The 2020 aquatic reconstruction that redefined Spinosaurus is still being fought over in peer review right now. Some paleontologists reject the fully aquatic model. Everything I just told you carries a meaningful asterisk, and that's not a weakness in the science. That's the science working exactly as it should in real time on an animal that refuses to fit neatly into any category we've built. But if Spinosaurus broke the rules of what an apex predator could be, Giganotosaurus rewrote them with raw, coordinated brutality. Evolution doesn't repeat itself. Giganotosaurus lived roughly 30 million years before Tyrannosaurus on a completely different continent, separated by an ocean, with zero genetic connection. And yet it arrived at almost the exact same answer. You know, it's like 43 to 45 feet long, over 9 tons, sitting at the absolute top of its food chain. Like, that parallel evolution isn't a coincidence, it's a blueprint. Apex predation at this scale appears to be an evolutionary inevitability, and that should unsettle you more than any single dinosaur ever could. But here's where Giganotosaurus diverges from the predator you're already thinking about. Its teeth were thin, blade-like, built for slicing flesh in rapid repeated strikes. Not crushing, not shattering bone, Giganotosaurus didn't need to end a fight in one bite. It bled prey out, slash after slash, like a 9-ton surgical instrument designed for maximum tissue damage per second. Think less sledgehammer, more machete, and it probably wasn't working alone, brace. Bone bed assemblages discovered in Patagonia contain multiple Giganotosaurus individuals buried together. That's significant because it suggests coordinated pack-style hunting, which is terrifying when you consider the brain involved. Giganotosaurus had a smaller brain-to-body ratio than Allosaurus, an animal that lived 50 million years earlier. The cognitive hardware was limited, therefore the fact that these animals may have hunted cooperatively despite that limitation makes the behavior even more striking. Something drove group coordination that didn't require complex problem solving. Instinct alone was enough to organize multiple 9-ton predators into a killing unit. Now, the internet loves the Giganotosaurus versus Tyrannosaurus debate. Here's the thing, they never met. Or different continents, different eras, different worlds entirely. But comparing their strategies reveals something fascinating. Giganotosaurus evolved slicing teeth and pack tactics. Tyrannosaurus evolved the single most devastating bite in terrestrial history. Two separate evolutionary experiments, two completely different philosophies of destruction, and only one of them perfected the art of killing alone. Tyrannosaurus. Here's the thing about Tyrannosaurus. Every predator we've covered so far was faster than it. Utahraptor could hit 34 miles per hour. Giganotosaurus hunted in coordinated packs. Even Allosaurus had a slash and retreat strategy built around agility. Tyrannosaurus maxed out at 17 miles per hour. That's slower than a human sprinter. And it still dominated everything on the continent for 2 million years because Tyrannosaurus didn't play the speed game it didn't need to. What it had was 11,700 pounds per square inch of bite force, the strongest of any terrestrial animal ever documented. That number needs context. That's not a gripping force. That's not a slicing force. That's a bone obliterating force. Tyrannosaurus didn't just kill its prey, it consumed the skeleton. Entire bones crushed and swallowed, extracting every possible calorie from animals the size of trucks. No other predator on this list could do that. But here's where it gets more interesting. Growth studies reveal Tyrannosaurus reached peak predatory efficiency between ages 18 and 28, packing on up to 4.6 pounds of mass per day during its fastest growth phases. That body plan wasn't random. It was an evolutionary arms race with ceratopsians and hadrosaurs that kept getting bigger. Therefore, Tyrannosaurus kept getting heavier, more powerful, more efficient at turning mega herbivores into fuel. And the scavenger debate? It's settled. Recent fossil evidence confirms active predation on large herbivores, with scavenging as a supplement, not a pure hunter, not a pure scavenger. An opportunistic mega predator that killed when it could and ate whatever was available when it couldn't. Every theropod before it was a prototype. Utahraptor was the agile killer, Allosaurus was the precision striker, Giganotosaurus was the pack hunter, Tyrannosaurus was the finished product, the final answer to the question of how dangerous a land predator could become. And it arrived just in time for an asteroid to close the file permanently. But if you think teeth and bite force are the only way to be dangerous, wait until you see what evolution did with claws instead. The Rhizinosaurus. Every dinosaur on this list so far has one thing in common: they wanted to kill you. Therizinosaurus didn't. It ate plants, leaves, branches, ginkgos, whatever it could reach, and it had the single most devastating natural weapons ever evolved on planet Earth. 36 inches, that's how long each claw was, longer than a human femur bone. 3 feet of keratin-sheathed killing potential, attached to arms that could reach over 15 feet in the air when this thing reared up on its hind legs, on a body weighing 16,500 pounds. A salad eater with the swords for hands. Here's where it gets interesting. Just because this animal completely reframes what dangerous actually means. Danger isn't about intent, it's about capacity. A grizzly bear doesn't wake up planning to kill hikers, but you'd never call one safe. Therizinosaurus operated on the same principle, except it was the size of a dump truck and armed with claws that biomechanical studies estimate could generate forces exceeding 56,000 joules in a defensive strike. For context, that's enough force to cave in the ribcage of a Tyrannosaurus. But here's the part nobody talks about. Those claws existed primarily to rake down high branches and strip foliage. That was their day job. The defensive capability was a secondary function, and any predator that misread a feeding Therizinosaurus as an easy meal would have discovered that secondary function in the last 3 seconds of its life. By rearing onto its hind legs, this animal created a slashing arc from 15 feet high that no predator had an anatomical answer to. You can't bite what you can't reach, and you definitely can't survive what comes swinging down at you. Now, full transparency. Complete skeletal material for Therizinosaurus is limited. Those force estimates are extrapolated from scattered fossil elements rather than a fully reconstructed skeleton, so treat the specific numbers as informed estimates. But even conservative calculations put this animal in a category of defensive lethality that nothing else in evolutionary history has matched: a plant eater with the deadliest claws ever evolved. But if you think claws are the only way a herbivore could be lethal, wait until you see what 3 horns and a battering ram skull could do. Triceratops. Triceratops lived in the same place at the same time as Tyrannosaurus. Same continent, same 68 to 66 million year window. And that matters because every single defensive adaptation this animal evolved was a direct response to sharing its world with the most powerful land predator in history. So let's talk about what those defenses actually looked like. The nasal horn alone reached 39 inches long with a core thickness of over 6 inches. inches. That's not decorative, that's a weapon designed to puncture, gore, and kill. But here's where it gets interesting. When paleontologists examined Triceratops skulls, like roughly 20% of specimens showed healed and unhealed puncture wounds consistent with horn-to-horn combat. That's not a rare occurrence, that's a fossil record of violence. Triceratops wasn't just defending itself against predators, it was fighting other Triceratops regularly enough that 1 in 5 individuals walked around with battle scars embedded in their skulls. And the charging capability is where the physics get genuinely terrifying. Skull structure indicates Triceratops could lower its head and charge in a motion biomechanically similar to a modern bull, but a bull weighs maybe 2,000 pounds. A fully grown Triceratops weighed up to 12 tons. That's not a bull charge. That's closer to being hit by a moving vehicle with 3 spears mounted on the front. Here's the thing. Its bite force was only 800 pounds per square inch, built entirely for shearing through plant material, 0 predatory design in the jaw, which means every ounce of offensive capability came from those horns and that massive body. No half measures, every confrontation was full commitment, and that leads to the question paleontologists have been wrestling with for decades. Tyrannosaurus actually hunt adult Triceratops, or did it selectively target juveniles to avoid the very real possibility of catastrophic mutual injury? Recent fossil evidence suggests both species absolutely interacted as predator and prey, but the advantages shifted dramatically depending on age and condition. A healthy adult Triceratops wasn't a meal, it was a gamble. And the most dangerous predator in terrestrial history probably knew it. But if you think a dinosaur built like a battering ram is impressive, wait until you see what Stegosaurus could do with nothing but a tail and 4 spikes. Like, Stegosaurus, a brain the size of a walnut, stuffed inside a body weighing up to 14,000 pounds. By every measure of intelligence, Stegosaurus should be the least threatening dinosaur on this entire list. But here's the thing. This animal didn't need to be smart. It just needed to swing its tail. The Thagomizer, 4 massive spikes at the end of that tail, each one between 28 and 39 inches long, was not decoration. Biomechanical computer modeling confirms those spikes could generate over 6,000 joules of force through deliberate swinging strikes. That's not a passive defense. That's a targeted weapon system calibrated to punch through the legs and soft tissue of anything stupid enough to get close. But the real proof isn't in computer models, it's in the bones themselves. Paleontologists have recovered Allosaurus specimens with Thagomizer spike wounds that penetrated straight through bone, and Stegosaurus specimens have been found with Allosaurus bite marks scarred into their plates and bodies. Both sides walked away injured. Both sides have the fossil receipts. This wasn't a one-sided slaughter, it was a documented arms race between predator and prey, preserved in stone for 150 million years. And here's where it gets interesting. Those 17 dorsal plates running along its spine, scientists debated their function for decades. Modern consensus says they serve triple duty: thermoregulation, sexual display, and defense, but proportional analysis leans heavily toward defense as the primary function. Against predators like Allosaurus, those plates made the back nearly impossible to bite down on effectively. Thermoregulation was just a bonus. Now here's a detail that genuinely surprises people. Stegosaurus lived 155 to 150 million years ago. Tyrannosaurus didn't show up until 68 million years ago. That famous matchup you've seen in every children's book never happened. Couldn't have happened. Stegosaurus and Tyrannosaurus are separated by more time than Tyrannosaurus is separated from us right now, today. So forget the pop culture image of a slow, dumb herbivore. Stegosaurus was running on pure instinct and still reliably injuring apex predators badly enough that the damage fossilized. But if you think a spiked tail is an impressive weapon, wait until you see what happens when a dinosaur turns its entire body into armor. Ankylosaurus. Every other dinosaur on this list evolved to kill something. Ankylosaurus evolved to be completely, categorically unkillable, and in doing so, it built the most sophisticated defensive weapon system in dinosaur history, one where the defense itself became the offense. Here's what we're talking about: over 200 bony osteoderms, each 2 to 4 inches thick. covering the entire dorsal surface like organic tank plating, a body stretching 33 to 36 feet long, weighing up to 8,000 pounds. But the real engineering marvel sat at the back end. A tail club composed of fused vertebrae and osteoderms weighing approximately 1,000 pounds of solid bone. That club wasn't decorative, it was built to shatter predator leg bones on contact. But here's where the design philosophy gets fascinating. Ankylosaurus moved at an estimated 3 to 6 miles per hour. That's barely a human walking pace. Like, evasion was never part of the equation. It couldn't run, it couldn't hide. Therefore, survival came down to a brutally simple binary. Either the armor holds and the club deters, or you die. No middle ground, no backup plan, no second option, and the armor held. The structural engineering of that fused bone club head, combined with the limb musculature supporting each lateral swing, indicates it could generate catastrophic blunt force trauma. We're talking enough force to fracture the legs of a full-grown tyrannosaur if it approached from the wrong angle. One bad calculation, one moment of overcommitment, and a predator that weighed 6 tons would be grounded permanently. In the Cretaceous, a predator that can't walk is a predator that starves. That's why Ankylosaurus closes this list, not because it was the most aggressive killer on the board, but because it represents the endpoint of the dangerous herbivore argument. Every carnivore in its ecosystem had to run the math before engaging. The ones that got the math wrong didn't get a second attempt, and that's the real thesis of everything we've covered today. Danger was never exclusively about predation, it was about weaponry, biomechanics, and the evolutionary arms race between animals trying to eat and animals that absolutely refuse to be eaten. Across 185 million years of the Mesozoic, both sides kept winning, both sides kept escalating, and the result was the most dangerous collection of animals this planet has ever produced. If you enjoyed this video and want to see every horrifying creature from the prehistoric age, click the video on the screen now.